May we see? Now we start the trial. Case 1996. On September 21st, 2017, Mr. Axel called the emergency, reporting that his wife, Laura, murdered their own daughter, Sarah. He returned from work as usual at 5 p.m. to find Mrs. Laura sitting next to her daughter crying, while the poor girl was lying on the ground, soaked in her own blood. Miss Laura was arrested on police arrival, and as the only suspect, Miss Laura was charged with murder of her own daughter. Would the defense like to start with their opening statement?
Thanks, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Laura was accused of murdering her 6-month-old daughter on purpose. And the fact is that no sane person can do this already voiced the accusation. But that's not the point. The point is, no sane person can do this while maintaining their full mental health. Miss Laura had postpartum depression, as Dr. Ray will show us, which I think was caused by environmental effects not directly related to her. Thanks, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Mr. Thomas, would you like to start?
Thanks, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are faced with a crime in which all human emotions have disappeared, all mercy had gone. And here we have a mother, and I'm ashamed to say this, who killed her 6-month daughter. And what made our case even worse is that people are defending this beast in the name of medicine and in the name of science. And here, Your Honor, we are going to prove that this terrible crime cannot be justified under any circumstances or any medicine. And nothing on the whole world can make this woman kill this little angel. Thanks, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Now, Mr. Axel, please proceed to the platform. You swear to say the truth, nothing, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Please sit down. Mr. Thomas, please start.
Thanks, Your Honor. Mr. Axel, can you describe to the courtroom the relationship between you and Miss Dora? I mean, did you have harmony in your relationship? Or we can say that there were many conflicts between you and her?
I can just tell that our relationship after the marriage was unstable. Everything was just going fine, and even problems that arose from time to time. Our relationship was strong enough to face them and go and let it go. But that was not the main thing. Over the second and third year of our relationship after marriage, just after she gave birth to our little daughter, Sarah.
Okay. So were you expecting a child in the way? I mean, did you both plan for this child?
Yes. I can tell that we could not be much happier than hearing such beautiful news about little Sarah, but I'm ready to be a member of our family.
I can see.
Yes, we were happy after the gynecologist to confirm that Laura was about to give birth to Sarah, and I always tried to keep Laura from doing hard things and during her pregnancy periods. I mean, we were both planning for such a great step in our relationship that strengthened our bond together. And over the periods of pregnancy itself, I was always providing ways of comfort and luxury for her to ensure that the baby's safety in the first place, of course, and her own happiness.
I can see. So I want to know, what's your first reaction when you knew that your wife was visiting a psychiatrist? I mean, did you approve such thing? And I also want to ask, did you notice any unusual behavior on Laura during the interval surrounding the crime?
I did not actually know. I was furious because she did not tell me in the first place, or I simply did not accept the concept itself. of seeing a psychiatrist and such things. I don't believe in such ways of behavioral psychiatry and such ways of therapy. And I'm not that man, you know, as I never believed in such therapeutic methods. But there's one thing that I can be assured of, that I definitely that will be definitely a sudden tragic change after giving birth to our little daughter.
A sudden tragic after giving
Yes,
birth.
yes, it was noticeable change on her actions, even the simple ones in everyday life.
So I understand from your words that you don't think that your wife was, or your wife had what's called postpartum depression.
No, as I just said, I do not believe in such things. Thinking about our daughter kills me inside. Every time I think about shaping a little beautiful face, I cannot just forgive her forgive me. I cannot forgive her for doing such a terrible thing. You know, how can you imagine to kill not, or I cannot say kill. How can you even hurt such an animal? Such our little Sarah was a little beautiful face. I cannot imagine you are even hurting her, not kill. So it was every time I think that any external reason that may have affected her personal behavior or something psychiatric or psychological. I don't believe in such things that can even hurt your own daughter, not kill her, even by accident. I don't believe in such things.
Finally, Mr. Access,
Just an answer.
yes, I understand. Finally, I want to describe to the court what you had seen when you arrived home the day of the crime, and where was Miss Laura and what was she doing? Was she crying?
As usual, I was at work and I returned home and found her screaming and crying, and Sarah left on the floor, bleeding to death. Forgive me, but I every time I say those words, I recall the scene in my mind. So how come a normal human being do such a thing? She did not even think to help her, to rescue her. She was bleeding, and the time that we could rescue her was long before I came home after work.
Okay. Your Honor, I don't have any additional questions for the witness.
Thank you. Would you like to
Mr. Axel, you said that the baby was expected, but the change wasn't. Can you explain how?
As I just said, I did not understand what caused that dramatic change in every action that Laura did. After the birth of Sarah, Laura changed a lot, and she was obsessed with this baby to the extent that she forgot I was even there. The way she treated me became different in an unexpected way.
May I ask, how did you respond to it?
I just managed to convince myself that this would not be permanent, and that simply encouraged me to ignore her and act like nothing happened. Deep inside of me, I believe that those hard times would be remembered later as memories, even if they are bad ones, but still memories. I only meant by ignoring her abnormal actions not to hurt her in any aspect. I did not have the stamina. I did not just have the stamina to help her get better, as I was facing other problems in my work too. After getting another part-time job, to ensure providing everything that they need. They both need Laura and Sarah. Yes. Yes.
You said you had a normal relationship till Sarah came, and then Laura became weird with her actions. Can you explain?
Yes, I consider all ups and downs in our marriage as relatively normal reactions between every couple in attempts to get used to each other. Yes, so it's normal.
Here, Your Honors, is a testimony from the neighbor, Rose. She said on Wednesday the 30th, she heard a smash down the floor. And she saw Mr. Axel, Laura's husband, running out of their apartment. Then she went to examine what happened. She found Laura on the floor, lying and bleeding, and Sarah burst in her tears. Did you know?
All those are lies. She's a liar, Your Honor. She's a liar.
Silence!
Miss Rose has no trusters. How dare you to tell such tales? Those are lies.
Here, Your Honor, is a study from the APA, American Psychology Association, shows that violence against women prior to giving birth leads to postpartum depression, which is exactly the case of Mrs. Laura, which led her to murdering her daughter. Are you acknowledged of what your action caused you wrong to do?
Actually, I'm not qualified enough to answer such a deep question, but I think if there is one person that's mentally ill, it would be me after losing my lovely little daughter, Sarah. Every time I'm questioned about her, I remember her little crying face and blame myself and blame Laura much about her foolish actions. But would it help? Would it get back Sarah to me? I want my little daughter Sarah back. I want Sarah. I want my daughter. I want my daughter. Thanks, Ron.
Now the live examination with Dr. Ray. Dr. Ray, please step up to the platform. Dr. Ray, you swear to say the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I swear in honor to say the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Please be seated. Mr. Rowe, please stop.
Dr. Ray, was Miss Laura among your patients regarding postpartum depression?
Yes, she attended sessions starting from 1 month after she gave birth to her daughter Sarah, as I recall. When symptoms began to appear until 1 week before the accident took place.
May you hand me the medical record, please?
Yes.
This is the medical records regarding Laura's case.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe.
Did you notice any fluctuations in her case, or was the case relatively stable?
During the first 3 months, the case was relatively stable, yes, but it started showing fluctuations during the last 3 months before the crime or the accident, as I say. We had to increase the number of sessions as a result of that.
May you please elaborate on what were these fluctuations, and could they cause and affect the mental stability of a sane person?
Laura showed a relapse in the last few weeks before the accident took place, and by all means, I could not decrease the rate at which Laura's condition continued to get worse. And yes, in late or severe cases like Laura's case, it could push them to commit suicide or hurt people they love. There are documentations of such cases and famous ones. As it was mentioned in the second section of the document talk. Then there is feelings of sadness and delusions and psychosis and postpartum depression case may lead people suffering from it to do such a horrible action.
As you see, Your Honor, Dr. Ray just affirmed that postpartum depression can lead
to someone committing such a crime without being in full mental health, which I think points the accusation. Thanks, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Mr. Thomas, would you like to question the witness?
Yes, thanks, Your Honor. Dr. Ray, can you please tell the courtroom what's exactly your specialization and from what university do you have your degree?
Actually, I'm a graduate of North Carolina University and I'm holding a biotechnology lecturer degree.
And here are the degree of Dr. Ray, Your Honor. So I conclude that you are not accredited from the APA.
From the ABA, I'm not accredited, but I'm accredited from other organizations.
Like what? Can you please give us example? To the court?
I've taken high-level courses in psychiatry offered by NORA and the organization for courses. The dream of my life was to become a psychiatrist. Unfortunately, my grades only qualified me to vice commissioner.
So what's even your authority to declare such judgment?
Those courses that were just mentioned give me accreditation to live to be a psychiatrist, to practice my job as a psychiatrist.
As you have seen, Your Honor, the testimony of this doctor shall be taken into consideration as he is not even accredited from the APA Association, and so we cannot take his testimony as evidence for the innocence of the defendant. Thanks, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Closing statements. Mr. Nall, would you like to start?
Thanks, Your Honor. As per the neighbor's testimony, Laura's husband abused her, which made her seek psychiatric therapy, and that led to the unqualified Dr. Ray as per the prosecution's files. Dr. Ray gave her medicines that made her case worse, which led to the unfortunate event of her killing her daughter. All mentioned above asserts that she wasn't sane and she wasn't in full mental health when she committed the crime. Hereby, I request the innocence of my defendant from the court. Thanks, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Nall. Please proceed. Mr. Thomas, would you like to start?
Thanks, Your Honor. As the evidence provided to the courtroom, we have shown two things, Your Honor. First, the testimony of Dr. Ray, Mrs. Laura's psychiatrist, cannot be taken into consideration as he is not expert in the field. Second, as stated by Axel, Mrs. Laura's husband, their relationship was totally normal, and even in the presence of fluctuations after the delivery of Sarah, their daughter, this doesn't prove or even relate to committing this crime. So, I request from the court to sentence the maximum penalty on this mother in order to prevent anyone from even thinking in killing. Thanks, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Judgment, Dr. Ray. Please be seated. And now for the final verdict. Undoubtedly, death is one of the most unforgivable sins in human history. And the victim being a child and the murderer, her mother, just makes this case worse. The prosecution provided arguments and evidence concerning the case. First, the prosecution proved that Dr. Ray had no qualifications to be a psychiatrist, which discredits all of Dr. Ray's testimony regarding Mrs. Laura's illness. Here, I have Mr. Ray's qualifications, and it includes a bachelor degree in biotechnology from North Carolina University only. So, the fact that Mrs. Laura might have postpartum depression will be ignored for now. Secondly, it is obvious that Mr. Axel and Mrs. Laura's relationship was stable before young Sarah was born. But Mr. Axel testified that Miss Laura started getting angry over a lot of small problems and that she was irritable during the period between the delivery and the incident. Which gets us back to the starting point, which is Mrs. Laura was not normal after pregnancy. Although Dr. Ray's testimony will not be taken into consideration, the defense pointed out a few factors that might have affected Mrs. Laura negatively on the psychological side. First, the defense provided another testimony from Mrs. Rose, one of their neighbors. Mrs. Rose said that on Wednesday she heard something crashing and then she heard little Sarah's cries. Mrs. Rose went to check if everything was all right, and she met Mr. Axel coming out of the apartment running, and she reported that she saw Mrs. Laura was on the ground bleeding, and she saw a young Sarah crying beside her. Mr. Axel's testimony that his relationship with Mrs. Laura started going in a bad turn after delivery. Mr. Axel has started getting aggressive towards his wife. Secondly, Mrs. Laura, in her predicament, turned to therapy, to psychiatry. Unfortunately, she chose a biotechnology bachelor career with near to zero experience in psychology, which is Dr. Ray. Dr. Ray's inexperience had resulted in Mrs. Laura's situation getting worse, as she was diagnosed by post-mortem depression. This false diagnosis had a really bad effect on Mrs. Laura's condition, as her mind tricked her into thinking that all the problems were her fault and made her respond very defensively to normal things. Mr. Noah provided evidence that shows that Mrs. Laura is not Dr. Ray's only victim. Dr. Ray's inexperienced practices resulted in many accidents similar to Mrs. Laura's case. This series of unfortunate evidence led to the death of an innocent child. Unfortunately, Ms. Laura is a victim of two persons. Her husband, who could not understand his wife during a very serious period in her life, and Dr. Ray, who always wanted to be a psychiatrist, but his non-sufficient academic qualifications and fancy dreams were the cause that this little child was killed. With this, I declare Miss Laura innocent. Thank you.